when you signed to Tooth and Nail, which was what, 93 or 4 or something like that, were you kind of aware of the perception of the label and how that might affect how people saw MXPX, or how did you think about that?
That's a great question. Let me let you in on some like secrets here.
And to be clear, I am a fan of Tooth and Nail, just to set the stage for everybody.
No, it's all good. But it's a great question because at the time we knew nothing. Like, you got to think pre-internet era. This was cassette tape. You knew a band because of your friend or your sister or your brother, right?
Yeah.
Like that for me, like
maybe Salmon Thrasher.
Exactly. Like if I could get a hold of like an old Thrasher magazine, but
yeah.
So I heard Pennywise for the first time working my job. I had already started MXPX. MXPX was a band, and I'm working this Spiro's job, washing dishes, busting tables, and I hear it was a bunch of punkers back there. So I hear Pennywise, I hear all these like Lagwagon for the first time, and I'm just like, holy shit. So like, I think a lot of people think of MXPX as peers of Lagwagon and Pennywise but we are a little younger. So like they had gotten their start, they had put out albums before us. And so hearing that was like, whoa. And so to answer your question about Tooth and Nail, we didn't know anything. We only knew what we could hear accidentally, washing dishes in the back room of Spiro's, like that kind of thing. I wasn't tuned into like zines yet or magazines really. Didn't have cable, didn't have MTV. I grew up kind of just like government cheese. We got the government cheese to eat. We got, your channel, 3 channels on TV. The one that played G.I. Joes in the morning was always blurry.
Right.
And that was life for me. It was like, okay, so I think that helped.
I mean,
me.
How would you be aware of any of these things, really?
Yeah, exactly. So when they came knocking on the door, we want to do a 7-inch. First, this was through Aaron Sprinkle, who we played some shows with, his band, Poor Old Lou. They were more of an alternative band than a punk band. But I think that's why we stuck out to all these guys in Seattle, was there's little kids playing skate punk. It's fun.
And it's really
cool, good. So, and
I mean, you guys were very good from the beginning.
For what we did, I feel like we were. Thank you.
Absolutely. And it still holds up now. You listen to old stuff, it's like, wow, this is like shockingly good for a bunch of little kids from Bremerton.
I appreciate that. And I think that's what got us in the door at these like parties we'd play in Seattle. We'd play these like college U district houses where they just packed the place. I mean, I'm like, you can't even bring in gear. It's so packed. And people are like letting you in. That to me was just like, where are we? And how far is this from Bremerton? Because we didn't know anything like that. We didn't go to parties. We didn't even, we can talk about drinking later, but we weren't really drinkers. I had drank before, but it wasn't a thing that you could just go and find in my hometown.
I didn't go to like an actual party until I was probably like 20.
Yeah, there you go. See, I accidentally went to a few, smoked my first joint in junior high, got drunk in 4th grade off of Lucky Lager, but those experiences were sort of like, they didn't enter me into a life of insanity. Like I just kind of like was like, I probably shouldn't have done that. And so I didn't do it again for a while, but yeah, with Tooth and Nail, like we just signed and they wanted to sign it. They were from California at the time. So
that's right.
We literally
still down in Orange County or whatever.
We had never heard of them. We'd never heard of them until they wanted to sign us, which is different because we had heard of Lookout Records. We had heard of Epitaph. I think Fat Records was maybe getting started around that. I'm not quite sure on the timeline.
If it was just barely.
Yeah, but Tom Wisniewski, our guitar player, once we all got into punk rock, he was much, much more of a better enthusiast than I was, as far as like knowing all the names of all the band guys, knowing all the albums, knowing the names of the songs. Like I knew all that. I knew all the songs and I listened to all those records, but he knew even more than me. So I was, he was always the guy that I would ask questions to. Like when I'm trying to think of memories from our tours, I'll be like, I'm going to have to text the group because they always know. They always know. But I was always focused on honestly MXPX. On once I started writing
Right.
songs, once I started doing the thing, I was always the point guy that was like, okay, talk to this person, set this up, produce this. I didn't realize it was producing at the time, but it'd be like, produce
Sure.
a show, promote a show, produce a video, produce we made 2 full-length albums on cassette tape before we ever released Pokin' At Ya, our first album. And they
Oh,
were
I didn't
just
know that.
demo albums. One was called I Like Orange Station Wagons. One was just called The Green Tape. It didn't have a name on it. And
Very
these were
local band names.
just like a demo tape of us practicing all our songs, like not messing up. So we'd like record one, and it was a boom box in the middle of the garage. Like
Hmm.
we'd listen to it, be like, oh, we need more bass. We'd either turn the bass up a little bit or push the boom box over towards
Move.
the
Yeah.
bass. That was our method. So
You're mixing.
yeah, we've come a long way.
Yeah.
Now we have our own studio here, and we record our own albums here. But
So you signed to Tooth and Nail, and when did you sort of start to understand a little bit more about, the bigger picture of how that was seen?
oh, it took us years. It took us so many years. We were always just carrot in front and just going towards that. And we took everybody at face value. We trusted everyone. Everybody we talked to. We were so naive. We really were, Finn. We were small town boys that were earnest and honest and wanted to do good. And I feel like in a lot of ways we had to prove ourselves that much more because of that. We had to
Hmm.
work hard, always be ready to go. We weren't from LA, so the opportunities were less than say
Yeah.
somebody that was down south. We had to plan ahead a little bit more as far as that stuff goes. But I think it's kind of part of what makes MXPX MXPX. We're not like
I mean,
other bands.
that's why I always liked the band, because even though I was into like hardcore and death metal and stuff back then, I mean, I still am, but I was never like that, like super edgy. And I grew up, like, I had a really fucked up family and stuff. So I was around a lot of like really edgy, dark stuff. And like, I never wanted, like, I wanted away from that. You know what I mean? Which is why, even though I was never like Christian or anything like that, I was into a lot of the Tooth and Nail bands for that reason. So I'm like, I want to get away from the stuff that my parents and their friends were into. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, because I mean, for me, it was like I grew up Huey Lewis. I grew up on Michael Jackson and like all the top 40 type stuff from the 80s. Like that's what I listened to. And before that, Beatles.
Hmm.
Like I feel like I grew up on the Beatles. That's hugely influenced my songwriting. Um, and honestly, I feel like it's influenced like No Effects. The way Fat Mike
Sure.
writes, very influenced by the Beatles, whether he would admit it or not. But just the fact that there's just weird hooks all over the place, and that's what I try to do, and that's like a lot of bands I like No Effects. I think they have weird hooks all over the place too. So yeah, I started listening to all that stuff just basically because my parents had it on, or I liked that, and so I grabbed that. Um, I was heavily influenced by the Violent Femmes. So
Hmm.
my mom actually introduced me to them, which is it's like it's kind of wild that my mom like even knew about them for one, but
Yeah.
their bass lines, I just
Yeah.
to me that's what I want to play bass like. I love that kind of thing. So a very eclectic beginning of my musical sort of influence, and then once I got into punk, it was all Descendants, all No Effects, all Rancid, all Clash, things like that. Of course, the Ramones have been a staple throughout my life. Screeching Weasel, love that style, love what they do. I always remember listening to them when I was working as a maintenance guy. Um, I didn't even have a license yet, so I was probably 15. I'd get picked up by my buddy Rich. He got me the job. It's always like, oh yeah, just give me the job, bring me along.
Right.
I've always been like that. I think because I'm a musician, I want to do my own thing, and so like make money here, but I want to like be free to do my own thing. So even early on, I was like that. Um, but yeah, listening to Screeching Weasel in the truck on the way to go clean up some rental house, after somebody trashed it. Those are good memories, and those probably stick with me more than I even think about on a daily basis.